woke up once again. I was restless. I looked around the room. I'd forgotten I was no longer at home. I rubbed my bloodshot eyes and took a look around once again. I looked at the burgundy-colored walls. I saw the shadow of the small TV in the corner. I looked at the closed window and saw the full moon. I turned on the small lamp on the bedside table and slowly got up from the bed. My toes touched the cool floor as I scrambled to get up. I walked over to the mirror. I was startled by my own reflection. I didn't look like myself. My hair was a mess. I looked like I hadn't slept in years, not just a few weeks, and I wasn't happy. I knew where I belonged, and I was positive that it wasn't in this small house in Critter Creek, New Jersey. I missed my castle in England. I missed my family, my friends, everything. I wanted to climb out the window and go home. I was furious that my parents wouldn't let me stay because apparently I wasn't ready to witness that kind of violence. Little did they know about the kind of violence I'd seen, the kind I had gone through. I shook that horrible memory out of my head and walked over to the door, opening it and going down the hall. I looked at everything intently. The room to my left was where the previous owners had stored all the things they didn't use anymore. On the right, there was a small cabinet filled with towels. A little further to the right was the bathroom, followed by a staircase that led to the kitchen. To the left of the kitchen was what used to be the master bedroom, and right in front of me was the living room and dining room. Yes, the house was small, but it somehow reminded me of home. I had no idea why, since this house was as big as 1.5 rooms back at the castle. I went inside the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water. Then I walked back over to my room, climbed on the bed, and once again pretended to sleep. I finally got out of bed at 8 a.m., took a shower, got dressed, and sprawled across the couch and read another book, this time The Lovely Bones. I loved sad stories. I didn't know why, but I just did. A few hours later, I heard a knock on the door, so I put the book down and walked over to open the door. "Hello, we're your neighbors," said a voice I'd never heard before. When I looked up, I saw 3 guys. 3 very good-looking guys. The first one I imagined was the oldest, had short brown hair and deep brown eyes. He was carrying a basket filled with fruits, nuts, and other kinds of edible things. I was imagining this was their way of welcoming me. Behind the basket, I saw he was wearing a burgundy dress shirt that matched the walls of my room. He wore black jeans and a pair of Converse. I wasn't sure if the dress shirt was because he dressed like that normally or if he was going somewhere later, but I don't think it really mattered. They were the first people to actually come by and introduce themselves. Even if I'd been here for more than a week, no one had come by, and deep down, I was actually happy about this. I wanted to be alone. I preferred to be alone. I always had been. I had taken care of myself since I was about 5 years old, and before that, my brother had raised me. Even if we did have parents, we looked after each other as if we didn't. I analyzed each and every one of the boys. The next one, I imagined the middle brother, had shaggy brown hair. He wore a white t-shirt under his orange jacket, a pair of jeans that were so skinny that he ran the risk of not being able to have children because of them, and black Converse as well, and seemed like a person who liked to have fun and loved adventures. But the third one was the most handsome of all. He too had brown hair styled in a punk, and was wearing a gray t-shirt with a leather jacket, jeans, and black Converse.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
"Hi," I said, still a little too dazed by their beauty to say anything else. They handed me the basket, and I was about to say something about this not being the way to welcome a princess, but then I remembered. People here didn't know I was royal. Yes, I was from a royal family that was very powerful. But not in the way you think. We weren't powerful because we ran the monarchy. We were powerful because we had supernatural powers. I was 1/3 witch, 1/3 angel, and 1/3 vampire. You see, during the 100-Year War between France and England, all supernatural creatures had to band together, no matter how much they hated each other. And so slowly, natural enemies couldn't resist anymore and began killing each other. Some creatures made peace and created families in order for their species to survive. And so, even though there were more full-breed creatures, there were a few more, like me, who were mixed. After looking at the neighbors for a little more, I analyzed them. I could read them like a book. I already knew how they were feeling because of their auras. An aura is the light that radiates off of you. It's also the energy that radiates off of you. The first one's aura was just like everyone else's, very colorful. but the most dominant colors were red and pink, which meant he was in love, either with a girl or just in love with life. And the energy radiating off of him was very happy and positive. That explained why while I was looking at him, I cheered up a little. The second brother's aura's most dominant colors were orange and green with just a hint of gray. So the orange meant he loved adventures and doing fun, crazy things. The green represented his love for the environment. And the gray meant he was going through some hard times, but they weren't controlling his life, so his energy was pretty upbeat. But the third brother's aura was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was fully black, which meant he was going through hell at the moment. He hasn't told anyone what is bothering him, so it may never go away. His aura could pretty much mean his impending doom. Obviously, his energy was sad and depressing. I welcomed them in. I might be a little upset, but they made my day. I put the baskets down on the table and went into the kitchen to get them something to drink. We introduced ourselves, and I was right. They were brothers. Their names were Adrian, Jesse, and Charlie. "We're sorry you haven't come around before. We just wanted to make sure you were comfortable," said Charlie. "Oh, and we also wanted to make sure you weren't some psycho killer who'd come here hiding from the cops and was planning on murdering everyone on the street and framing us for it," said Adrian. In my life, I'd never heard such an absurd comment, but then again, I'd never been so far away from home and by myself, so I hadn't had much of a wide range of conversation with different people. "Excuse our big brother here. He has an extremely overactive imagination," said Jesse, the middle child. "That's okay," I said. I didn't say anything else about that, neither did they. "Anyway, has anyone else come around to introduce themselves?" "Nope, it's just been you. I don't know, maybe they're afraid of me or something." "Nah, they're probably just busy," said Jesse. "Yeah, that's probably right," I said, knowing that the truth was that people were frightened of me, some more than others because of the fact that they knew what I was and thought of me as the offspring of the devil. Some people looked at me and just saw some odd girl, but those were the ones who didn't know. The ones who did know the truth about my supernatural powers gave me nasty looks and tended to avoid me. They saw me as death. Nothing more, nothing less. So what do you do for fun here? We haven't seen you out of this house much," asked Charlie. "I'm a pretty laid-back person, so I just tend to stay here and read," I said, picking up the book I'd been reading earlier. "Ah, Lovely Bones. Good choice," said Jesse. "Yeah, it's pretty good, but finishing answering a question, I just read. Sometimes I watch TV, I go for walks in the morning. Other than that, nothing else really." "You should come golfing with us later," Adrian said eagerly. "I'd love to, but I pretty much suck at sports. I've tried them all, and I don't really think I'm very good at them." "That doesn't matter. You can just come and watch," said Jesse. Don't take this the wrong way, but other than the fact that I lack skill for sport, I find golfing to be pretty boring." "Oh, well, maybe another time, and another thing," said Charlie, looking disappointed. I noticed that it felt like I just didn't want to hang out with them. "Honestly, I really don't have anything against you, but it's just, well, when it comes to sports, I like sports that are adrenaline-packed, like football." "But maybe you can come over tomorrow for dinner and we can watch a movie." "We'd love to," said Charlie, practically jumping out of the couch. "We'll bring the popcorn," Adrian said eagerly. "Sure, thanks. What time should we be here?" "Around 7 or 8. "Cool, we'll see you tomorrow," they said. Then they left, and I was alone again. Left alone knowing I was about to go through hell trying to hide my powers. My vampire powers weren't very difficult to hide since I was only super strong and super fast. I had been raised among humans, so I no longer craved their blood. The rest were a little harder to hide, especially my witch powers. I could make flames or water or ice come out of my hands. I could bend the elements. I could do so much. It was quite complicated to hide my powers. But the worst of all was the reason why I almost always wore sunglasses. My eyes were like mood rings. They changed with my mood. Most of the time, I was relaxed, so they were a blend of blue and gray. When I got angry, they weren't even red. That only happened when I was irritated. They were literally on fire, like you see in cartoons. I spent hours in the kitchen trying to figure out how in the world I was going to hide my powers when suddenly the phone rang. "Hello?" I said. "Hey, how's it going?" asked Dimitri in his heart-melting, irresistible, and unique voice that consisted of a Russian accent mixed with an English one. "Surviving. Trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to hide my powers from my mortal neighbors." "Maybe I could help," spent decades among humans without them noticing that I'm a vampire, he said. That always caring, always helpful, always concerned Dimitri. Thanks so much, but I'm gonna need you to come down here to Jersey, considering the fact I'm restricted from coming within 3,498 miles from home, I said. Sure, princess. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't worry, I won't take a plane. I'll run. I'll run to you just like if I were in a race. Like the race my heart, frozen heart, goes through every time I see you. And I'll run, he said. It had been a terrible night. I practically didn't sleep. When I woke up, I went downstairs and something startled me, a shadow in my living room. I went downstairs quietly, but when I got there, I saw it was only Dimitri. Just like he promised, he was here. He always did keep his promises. After he told me what happened in the kingdom, how the brave knights had been killed defending my family, we raced together to a place where no one could find us in the woods, so I could practice controlling my magic. It took about 6 to 8 hours, but I finally got it right. A few minutes later, Dimitri got a call from the kingdom. They had just lost a few more knights in battle, and were going through a hectic time. I began to worry, especially about my family's safety. I have to go, said Dimitri. I know. So do I. You can't. You know that. That's the reason why your parents sent you here in the first place. So you could be safe, he said, sounding very dangerous. He was usually so relaxed around me that I'd forgotten how dangerous he really was, how dangerous he could really be. I don't care. My family isn't safe and I have to be with them, because if they die, I die.
We're all gonna die!
Look, no one is going to die and you are not going home, period. You can't tell me if I can or cannot go home. No, but your parents can and you know what they want. But if you prefer, I can call them and you can ask them yourself. No, thank you, I said, glaring at him. I was pissed. So what are you gonna do when I leave? Go with you? What? Okay, how many times do I have to say no? And how many times do I have to say yes? Look, Dimitri, I know what my parents want, but I just can't leave my family alone when they're in danger. It's my job to take care of your family, and that includes you, and you are safe here, not there. What? But nothing. Oh, I am so going, I said, walking past him. No, you're not, he said, grabbing my arm, preventing me from walking away. We fought like that for a few more minutes until he convinced me to stay a little longer. He promised to take me back if there was any trouble, although from his eyes I could tell he'd rather not. But hopefully he expected to take me back home when it was safe again. That day, after twilight, Dimitri left me. I was all alone, again. That night, I prayed so that I could go home soon. I knew that what Dimitri and my parents were doing was to keep me safe, but I hated the fact that they thought I wasn't strong enough to deal with something like this. I knew I was, but I guess that's how life is. I avoided thinking all day by going out to get the movie for tonight. My choice was House of a Thousand Corpses and prepared the living room, the kitchen, and supper. I didn't allow myself to think of home or my family all day, and I managed to do that until I ran out of things to do. I couldn't do anything else to take my mind off of my family, so I finally gave in and sat down on the couch, practically pleading to God to let the war end so I could go home and be with them. There was nothing in the world that I wanted more than that, but it was out of my control. I kept thinking and crying until it was 6:45, when I went to get ready. That at least numbed the pain a little, and I tried to cheer myself up for when Charlie, Adrian, and Jesse arrived. As I fixed the table one last time, the bell rang, and I got to get it. I ran to get it. Hey, said the boys. Hi, I said, gesturing for them to come inside. So, do you guys live by yourself or what? I asked. Nah, we live with our mom and dad. Cindy and Jacob Warrior, said Charlie. Do you live by yourself? Asked Jesse, noticing the lack of an adult figure in my home. For now. They noticed I felt uncomfortable and changed the topic. This is good food. Did you make this? Asked Adrian with his mouth full, pointing at the spaghetti with his fork. Yeah, my brother taught me how to cook. Oh, you have a brother, they said, shocked. After dinner, we went into the living room and watched the movie, which was great. I've seen a whole lot more blood and scary creatures than the ones in that movie. But you're one tough chick, didn't hear you scream once, said Adrian. I laughed. I've seen scarier things than that in real life. Seriously? Man, your life's probably kick-ass, said Adrian. Wow, look at the time. We have to go, but it was nice, said Charlie, clearly not wanting to go, even if it was around 11:45. Yeah, it was. I guess I'll see you guys later? Sure thing, said Jesse. See you around, said Charlie. Bye, said Adrian. After they left, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I mean, I didn't mind their company. I actually enjoyed it, but my magic was driving me insane. One more minute and I would have had to put on sunglasses, and I don't think I have an explanation for why I was wearing them inside and at night. I remembered my home, and once I realized I couldn't take it anymore, I had to know what was happening, so I tried tapping into my dad's mind. I knew there I'd get everything I had to know to be sure everything was okay. No luck. Instead of trying my mom, I tapped into Kyle, my brother's mind. I now saw through his eyes what he saw. I saw the hallways, him going down the stairs. My mother was on the long kitchen table crying. He comforted her until my father came in. I want this to be over, but your crying isn't letting me think. I wasn't very shocked by that. Neither was Kyle, but my mom was. She never did know when he'd throw one of his tantrums. Dad, I'm not feeling very good lately either, and we also want this shit to be over, but we know there's something we can do. And trust me, yelling at Mom isn't making anything better, said Kyle fiercely. I had never been this proud of him. You do not disrespect me, even less in front of your mother. I am your father.
I am your father. Hey! I am your mother!
Ha! You've never been a father to me, and even less to Brittany. Please calm down, you two, said my mom, choking back some tears. I think you should go. She didn't say a word, just left. At the precise moment she walked out of the room, Kyle lounged himself forward, and now had my dad pinned down. I pushed myself out of his mind. It was a lot harder to push myself out of someone's mind than to push myself in, especially when I'd spent a large amount of time in their heads. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't take it anymore. At least I'd be able to go to bed tonight knowing that my family was okay for one more night, unless Kyle killed my dad. Although that was unlikely. What surprised me most about tonight wasn't the fact that my brother and my dad were fighting, but what Kyle said to him about him not being a good father. I knew he thought that. He knew I thought he wasn't the best father either, but never thought he'd tell him to his face. Tonight had been full of surprises, but I still wanted to go home. I had so many questions, but my number one right now was why Kyle said that to my father. Our father. I knew him, and it was very rare of him to act like this. I felt something was wrong, but I wasn't sure what. All I could think of right now was that look of hatred toward my brother my father had because he did not want the throne. I was guessing that was the issue he had with my brother. I thought that's why he couldn't bear to spend a second in his presence. I felt that lust, the desire my brother had to say those words to my father, to fight him, but I never thought he'd do it. Another thing I still didn't understand was why my father looked at Kyle with so much hatred just because he refused to be king. There had to be something else, something he had buried deep inside him, something that I had to dig very deep to find. It wasn't normal for a father to hold a grudge against his son for so long. It wasn't normal for a father to have so much hatred and resentment toward his own son, his only son. But those were answers I'd need to wait to find out. I didn't go to bed yet. I was far too worried to sleep. So I cleaned everything up and finished reading my book. When I looked at the clock, it was past midnight, so I figured I had to go to bed. I turned off the lights and walked toward my room down the dark hallway that was only lit by the moonlight that came in through the window. I sat in my bed for a few minutes and looked around. I still was not used to this. It was all so strange. I reached down to the floor and grabbed my bag. I took out a big book full of pictures and started looking at them. There were pictures from when Kyle and I were younger. Some were of my friends and I when I lived in Texas. Others were family pictures and things like awards and newspaper clippings about some of the things my parents had done for our small country. I went back to the pictures of my friends in Texas and reminisced about those times when I had a partially normal life. I took out a picture of me and my best friends, Shane and Kylie, at a birthday party. I wore a simple outfit, just a red plaid button-up shirt with shorts. So did Kylie and Shane, who wore plain t-shirts, jeans, and cowboy hats. We were at some ranch and I actually looked happy, but that was before everything got complicated. I smiled and put the picture away. I laid my hand on a picture of Shane, Kylie, and I, and something strange happened. Instead of being inside one of their minds, I was pushed out. I knew there was something wrong. That only happened when a person pushed you out, and only shields were able to do that, and neither Kylie nor Shane were shields. They were both mortals. I let it go. It was probably nothing, so, once again, I pretended to sleep and waited for morning light. I woke up at the crack of dawn, made my bed, took a shower, and followed the same routine as always, until I ended up on the couch. I turned on the TV. They were giving the news. Another day, another disaster. I changed the channel. The last thing I wanted was to hear that more people were dead, or that there was another accident of some sort. They were giving a movie. I left the TV on but paid no attention to it. I was completely lost in my thoughts. You're probably wondering why I left the TV on, if I wasn't watching it. The truth is, I liked listening to the sound. It helped make me feel like I wasn't completely alone. I kept thinking about how I'd been pushed out of my friend's mind last night. Were they lying to me? If one of them was a shield, or like others called them, pushers, what were they trying to keep me from? This made no sense at all. Why would they keep something from me? We've been best friends since the 2nd grade. We told each other everything. We still talked on the phone, but they hadn't said anything odd or left any hints about them being shields. Even if they were, or at least one of them was, why wouldn't they tell me? These thoughts kept spinning around my head for a while until a big bang from the movie brought me back to the real world. I got up from the couch and turned off the TV. I walked over to my room and pulled out the book my grandmother had given me when she died. It had all of the supernatural creatures such as shields, vampires, werewolves, healers, angels, and the list went on. I didn't remember what shields could do exactly, so I wanted to make sure before I jumped to any conclusions that one of my friends was one and was lying about it. I opened the book and found a note from my grandmother. She had written something for me and I never noticed it. It said, "To my dear granddaughter, times are going to get tough when you grow up. You're going to have many lives resting on your shoulders, but you can do it. Never lose your faith, because I learned a long time that faith is the last thing you lose. Love, Grandma." Oh my god, I still have 3 pages. I wondered when my grandma had written this, since she died when I was 3 years old. She had probably given the book to my mother, and she must have thought it was time I knew what was going to happen when I was prepared to rule. She knew these words would help me understand that crazy turn my life would take once I began to rule. After all, my grandmother had been one of the most beloved queens DarkLust had ever had. She was no ordinary woman, nor an ordinary queen. You see, my grandmother had been a great warrior once. She had saved so many lives. She hadn't married a prince, she married a humble man she had saved in the war. He was a vampire, and since he met her, he had tried to compel her to kiss him, but the attraction was already there. Compulsion was a talent all vampires had. By compelling mortals or other creatures, they could get them to do whatever they wanted. She had protected the people from our few cities and came up with the idea to disguise the outside of our city as a place where humans believed toxic waste was dispatched. My great-grandmother also had a forbidden love story. You see, she had been attracted to an incubus. Let's just say they're not the best vampires in the world, but they are one of the most beautiful ones. With their angel faces, they seduced women and used them. They sleep with them and suck their blood, and then they disappear. I had met one once, but he couldn't seduce me. I had done my research about his kind a long time ago, and I knew what they did. I studied many different types of vampires and was shocked to see the horrible, gruesome things some of them do. Some of them really were monsters. My family wasn't like that. Our coven ate raw meat, the kind you buy at the supermarket, but we didn't cook it. We didn't believe in killing others. I remember that my mother used to tell me that the only way to be around humans without being detected was to join the army and go to war. What? There was a time when vampires and mortals had coexisted in this world. My mother told me about it. There had been a massive dragonpear attack. Dragonpears are the bad guys in our world. And my family had formed an army, and we'd saved many lives. The major reason why we could no longer be part of the human world was because they began to study mythology and folklore and began to discriminate against us. And then with technology and ridiculous movies, people just forgot about us, and now we live hidden in many cities in Europe, separated from the real world. Going back to the book, I looked through the index and found what I was looking for. Shields, page 64. Shields are extremely strong creatures that have amazing powers. They have the power to shield their thoughts or someone else's, but they also have a bittersweet way of using their powers. The same way they can block thoughts from your mind that hurt you, they can push you to think what they want you to. Shields who use their powers for evil are known to make up incredible stories that they put in your mind for their advantage. They can push you to think about rainbows and puppies the same way they can push you to commit a crime, give them a fake alibi, or even make you think vile thoughts like harming other people or even murder. But also they are known, like mentioned before, for being able to keep or allow people to see certain things, you see when you enter the mind of someone and a shield is present or the person is a shield, they see you as if you were with them in the room, which allows them to push you out of their heads or out of someone's head when they think you don't belong or don't agree with what you're doing. These creatures are able to communicate with shields and non-shields mentally, although the connection works better with another shield since they can reply without having to make signs at you or having to read their thoughts. This connection allows them to talk to each other from miles away. It went on, but I didn't really care about it. Plus, all I'd achieved with reading this was getting even more confused. I gave up thinking I was just overanalyzing things. I wanted to go home already. I wanted to be with my family and friends again, to be able to go out without glistening or shining in the sun or becoming weak because of the harsh sun that they had here in Critter Creek, New Jersey. Sure. At home in DarkLust, the sun wasn't harsh. It hit my skin lightly, making it shimmer, but not weakening me. Here at Critter Creek, it made my skin shine blindingly in the sun. You see, when vampires were exposed to the harsh sunlight, it weakened us. The sun no longer hit us as lightly, but blazed and stuck to our pale skin. It gave us a feeling of burning. It felt as if someone was scratching our skin off with claws. It felt as if they were ripping our skin off our bones, and slowly we began to lose our strength, walking hunched with tired expressions on our faces, and our knees eventually gave out under the hot sun. This was a great advantage for those who used to chase us out of cities, afraid of us killing them. They used to run us out of our small villages and into cities that had blazing sunlight. We ran as far as we could until eventually our knees gave out and we stumbled to the ground. We used the last of our strength to try and scramble to our feet, but our efforts were useless and we succumbed to the hot sun and had our final fall. We then saw the last sun we'd ever see as they drove the stake through our hearts, and it felt like they were... Yeah, if you're wondering what it feels like to have a stake driven through your heart, it feels like they're passing burning wood or metal through our heart. Then it went on to a freezing temperature. Then as you tried to remove the stake, you felt it tug at your heart as if it were saying, if I come out, so does your heart. And the vampire hunters removed our cold hands from the stake. They push it even deeper, and then you feel like there's a hole inside of you, and then you see nothing but the darkness of death, which by then feels blissful. What was wrong with me? Lately all I could think about was death, secrets, and pain. The warrior brothers had made the pain go away quickly, but the happiness only lasted for so long. Once they were gone and my guard was down, sorrow crept slowly into the room until it surrounded us, leaving me with an empty, choking feeling that made me think even darker thoughts. I thought I was going insane. I feel like I'm going insane. But then I remembered something my grandmother had told me once when I was little. And I told her I thought I was crazy, and she had her laugh. She told me that was impossible since crazy people never thought about if they were crazy or not. I literally am like 99% sure I just ripped that off from Vampire Academy. I knew I wasn't crazy. Well, but sometimes it just felt like that. Even when I managed to fall asleep, I dreamt of bizarre things, but sleep was my only escape. So I decided to go to bed for 2 reasons. Number 1, I was exhausted since I didn't sleep in about 2 weeks. And 2, I wanted to get rid of the feeling of asphyxiation, instability, and depression. Wow, mood. I eventually fell asleep and escaped into my bizarre dreams from a bizarre life. I went back to the picture book so I could cheer up a little. There were so many good memories in that book. As I flipped through the pages, I was surprised to find pictures of me when I was 13. I was with my cousin, Anna, and some of my friends. I remember that day. It was one of the few trips I made to Puerto Rico with my family. My cousin didn't live there. She lived in Italy, but she was on vacation with us. I had a few friends in Puerto Rico, actually. I had met them once while I was walking with my family exploring the island at the beach in San Juan. Those were one of the few moments where we actually acted like a family. Normally, my parents were never home. They were working. And I hadn't seen Anna since I was 13 and I'm 16 now. My family has always been a world of twists and turns, and if there is one thing I've learned is that in life things happen spontaneously and everything can change in the blink of an eye. Abruptly, my thoughts come back to Dimitri. I never understood that boy. He wasn't normal, and I don't mean that because he's a vampire, but because he was so different from everyone else I knew. He was not like other boys. He was charming and very sweet, although sometimes I had this feeling that there was something strange about him. I didn't know what it was, but I never gave much thought to it. He was one of my best friends after all, and I had to trust him. On the plus side, he had always been there for me and always had my back. He was one of the few friends I had. Apart from that, Dimitri was the only person who knew almost all of my secrets. I knew all of his secrets, but that was because Dimitri had no family, no one to talk to since they had all died. My favorite thing about Dimitri was how honest he was. He always calls you out on your crap, which came in handy when you were a princess, since You had to stay grounded, and that wasn't as easy as it sounded. Once I was done looking at the pictures, I went to bed around 2 a.m. and dreamt about going home